All right, Richard Dawkins, famed atheist biologist, of course, was on a show recently where he had, or seemed to have, some unusually positive things to say about Christianity. And many people found this to be somewhat curious and surprising. Let's watch this.
I was slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it wouldn't matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful.
Well, which brings me to my supplementary point, which is that, as we know, church attendance is plummeting, but the erection of mosques across Europe, I think 6,000 are under construction, and there are many more, are being planned. So do you regard that as a problem? Do you think that matters?
Yes, I do, really. I mean, I might choose my words carefully. I mean, if I had to choose between Christianity and Islam, I choose Christianity every single time. I mean, it seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion in a way that I think Islam is not.
I think you're going to have to explain why you say that, Professor Dawkins. Why is Islam fundamentally not decent like Christianity?
Yes, I mean, the way women are treated. I mean, Christianity is not great about that. It's had its problems with female vicars and female bishops and things. But there's an active hostility to women, which is promoted, I think, by the holy books of Islam. I'm not talking about individual Muslims, who, of course, are quite different. But the doctrines of Islam, the Hadith and the Quran, is fundamentally hostile to women, hostile to gays, and I find that I like to live in a culturally Christian country, although I do not believe a single word of the Christian faith.
Okay, so Dawkins is right about one thing, which is that there are many advantages to living in a Christian society. A Christian society is better than all available alternatives and also all unavailable alternatives. Now, he didn't say that part, but it's true. And the positives that he outlines, which are mostly aesthetic, are also true. Though there are a lot more positives than just the aesthetics, even though that's what he seems to focus on. He talks about the hymns and the Christmas carols and the cathedrals and so on. But he's wildly wrong about almost everything else that he says here, because it's all based on this notion that you can be culturally Christian while not actually being Christian. He thinks that an individual can be non-Christian, though culturally Christian, and that a society can be non-Christian, though culturally Christian. And he's wrong on both counts, and for the same reasons. There is no Christian culture without Christianity. There may be imitations. There might be imitations. You could try to wear Christianity like a skin suit and call it a culture. That's not really a culture. It's only skin deep. It's rootless. It's shallow. But what Dawkins calls Christian culture is it's really the remnants of Christian culture. The churches, the Christmas carols, those are the relics that survive in cultures that have abandoned Christianity, like the culture that Dawkins lives in. But they don't survive forever. The churches decay, may take a long time, or they're burned down, or they are defaced in various different ways. They can be defaced by actual vandalism and destruction of property, but they can also be defaced by intentionally making them uglier, which is something that has happened in many old, especially in this country, although I assume in other countries as well. But in this country, you'll find, there are many old cathedrals that are beautiful inside and outside and have survived and have been preserved. But then sometimes you'll see a church, and it's an old church and it's beautiful on the outside, and then you go inside and you see that there's been an effort made to uglify it. Like, it's been made ugly on the inside. They've even done things like taking away statues, beautiful statues and works of art that were inside the cathedral. They take them out to make it uglier inside intentionally. So that's what ends up happening. They don't survive forever. And Christmas carols and hymns, are replaced eventually with newer, uglier songs. And we're seeing all that happen, of course. So Dawkins is standing in the rubble of Christian culture and calling that rubble culture. And ironically, he helped to tear down the very thing whose culture he allegedly loves and celebrates. Dawkins, in his own way, has been waging a war on Christianity for decades. And now he says, I'm a cultural Christian. And I say now he says that. I think in reality, he's been saying stuff like this for years, just that people are only just noticed now. Which also means, by the way, some of the reaction to that clip, I've seen some Christians very hopeful, very optimistic, saying, it sounds like Dawkins is, he's slowly but surely making it over to our side of the aisle, and maybe there's a conversion on the horizon. And it could happen. Greater miracles have happened. We just celebrated one on Easter, of course. So it could happen. Who's to say that it wouldn't? But I will say this is actually, what he's saying here is not new. He's been saying this kind of thing for a long time, calling himself a cultural Christian. And it's been wrong the entire time. Do you owe back taxes or still have unfiled returns? That can really weigh on your mind, especially when the IRS has become more determined than ever. Their chief data and analytics officer revealed that the IRS is focused on an enforcement project with an average return on investment of about $6 for every $1 spent. They're targeting individuals and businesses that currently owe back taxes or haven't yet filed their returns. Tax Network USA, the nation's leading tax relief firm, knows the tax code and will fight for you. With a record of negotiating over $1 billion in tax relief for their clients, their team is knowledgeable in handling any type of tax issue. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help. Even if you don't have all your personal or business records from over the years, they can get you filed up to date. Facing the IRS without a professional is not a smart move. Contact Tax Network USA for the best strategic advice to help reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. Call today at 1-800-245-6000 or visit their website at tnusa.com/Walsh. They'll give you a free private consultation on how you can settle your tax debt today. That's tnusa.com/Walsh. And why can't you have Christian culture without Christianity? Well, for one thing, it's the same reason why you can't have, Chinese culture without China. Even if you enjoy some of the products of that culture, maybe you like the Kung Pao chicken, but you can't really have Chinese culture without China itself. That's where the culture comes from. So it's like if Dawkins, Dawkins here is a bit like someone who leads an army into China and inflicts carnage across the country and eradicates its population, hollows it out, and destroys it. And then turns around and says, I really consider myself to be culturally Chinese. I do love egg rolls, after all. Now, I'm not saying that Richard Dawkins has done that to Christianity. He has not vanquished Christianity as much as he might wish that he could, but he has been waging war on it. And now he pines for its hymns and its cathedrals. The point is that Christian culture springs out of Christianity, and this should be, I would think, rather obvious. Christian culture is a product of Christianity. The hymns that he likes, and I can see why anybody would like them, even if you're an atheist. Like, again, aesthetically, it's beautiful. But Christmas, we know Christmas in general. Everybody loves Christmas, even if they're not Christian. And yeah, a lot of the things that they kind of love about it now, it's a lot of the commercialized aspects of it that really have nothing to do with what Christmas is at its core. But even all of that, like that's all, without the core of what Christmas is, none of that other stuff exists. But all of that exists because of Christianity. The hymns were composed to worship Christ. The cathedrals were built for that same reason. The Christmas carols, the holidays, all of that exists because of Christian faith. And without the faith, it never would have existed. And when the faith decays, those things recede along with it. And whatever is left is emptied of all meaning. Whatever is left is, it's like the cathedrals that still on the outside look a little bit like a cathedral, and then you go in and it's, everything has been sanitized and made ugly. Because a culture is a living thing. And a culture is a creative thing. And if a culture is not creating, it is dead. Now, we know that Christian culture creates many things, beautiful things, useful things. Some of the greatest artists and inventors and philosophers and thinkers and so on, and political leaders and everything that have ever lived were Christians in a Christian culture. And those things it's not a coincidence. It's not just that, they just so happened to be in a Christian culture. And if they had been in any other kind of culture, they still would have achieved all those great things. Maybe they would have achieved some great things, but we know that the fact that they were Christians in a Christian culture is a large part of what drove them to do the great things that they did. Well, a post-Christian culture, on the other hand, doesn't create any of that. A post-Christian culture does not build cathedrals. It may build things that it calls churches, but those churches are sort of bland office buildings, right? They're the kind of buildings that you look at them from the outside, and if you didn't see a sign anywhere, you wouldn't even know it was a church. And even sometimes if you see the sign, you still don't know that it's a church, right? Even the sign makes it look like, well, that could be, what is that? That could be is it a post office? Like, what is it? That's what a post-Christian culture builds. It builds ugly, dull things because it's an ugly, dull culture. You cannot have the vibrancy of Christian culture without Christianity itself. All you can have are the leftovers, which is what Dawkins is really talking about. And what he seems now to at least pretend that he cherishes, even as, again, he's, and has always relentlessly opposed the thing that produces all those things that he cherishes. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.